Welcome. This is our podcast, Johnny and Phil's Voices of the Village, and we have our friend and community leader Cory Wright with us today. Cory Wright is a county commissioner. And what remind me what district are you?
District 1, the eastern half of the county.
Okay, perfect. And so that cuts right through Ellensburg.
Pretty much drive line north or south through Ellensburg and all the way to the river.
All right.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, fair enough. And we're talking. Our conversation today is always going to be about building community and how to make our community stronger. And we're really curious to get Cory's perspective about how we can make our little town of Ellensburg, even and the entire county, to make it an even cooler place. So that's our conversation. And of course, I'm joined by Phil.
Good to see you, Johnny.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Cory.
Good to see you, Phil.
And we have basically three themes for our time together this morning. We're interested in having you talk to us about what inspires you about this county, inspires you about the people here, what challenges you see, and then how do we measure success? So as we go through the conversation, those are the three themes we'd like to focus on. So let's just begin with inspiration. What inspires you about this county and the people?
Well, I think a lot of folks know about my own personal family history here. I've been here for a long time. But I also see this place, even though there's a lot of what my family has been here behind and what they've done, there is so much more that yet to be done. This is really, in my mind, such a blank slate of an area still. Mm-hmm. We have nothing in my mind but potential. There are a lot of, I think people would call them missteps in our history when we look at how opportunity could have taken us in different ways. There was the capital at one time, which was looked at a big failure, as a big failure. There was an opportunity to be a licensed operator of a Columbia River dam. There was a port district here with a lot of economic potential, a lot of economic success that never came to be. It was actually disbanded. But regardless of all those things, which some could call failures, we still have so much before us. Still, we are not an area with vacant storefronts. We are not lamenting at this point the loss of key industries. There was for a time when our resource industries, especially timber, went away. I think in many ways we are still recovering from that, but nevertheless, things have come to fill those voids and provide new opportunity. So much yet lies before us, and I believe that as we honor the past and continue to look fondly at what has been accomplished, lots of folks are still coming here. They do want to be a part of it, and frankly, I welcome them. Even though I can honestly say my family has been here just about longer than anybody, I still welcome new ideas and new ways of thinking, because continuing to rely on the same past practices, the same thinking, we can't change it, will only give us the same results. And even though we still have a lot of potential, challenges are really stacking up before us as folks arrive. How do we continue to maintain a sense of opportunity, a sense of I can live here, not only for those arriving with salaries perhaps from other places working remotely, but those like my family who have lived here, who have been a part of this community and want to stay here. No matter what happens, whether you're from somewhere else or from here, you want to give your kids the same chances to thrive and succeed and build their own part of this area. And the good comes with the bad. We have to mix them both to figure out the best way forward. But I have a way more optimism, I think, than any sort of reservations or pessimism about what lies before us yet.
I appreciate your optimism so much.
Yeah, so do I.
It's one of the things I really appreciate about your leadership. And the saying that comes into my mind is, the past is perfect. It's brought us to this transformational moment. So I feel that Ellensburg and Cle Elum and Kittitas all are poised, and all the municipalities in our county are poised to shift in ways that honor the past, and also in ways that provide rich and diverse commerce for our youngins to grow up in this little amazing spot. And I mean, Washington State is such a beautiful state, and then we have the Kittitas County, which is such a beautiful spot of Washington State, and then we have our little communities that are even more special than the geography of the place. And so it makes me think that with all the not being the capital, being the university instead of the capital, not getting a dam or not saying yes to a dam. Port District comes to mind as well. But now we're here, and we have this opportunity to really shape our way forward. And this idea that, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Well, we're changing, whether we like it
That's
or not.
right. Yeah.
So we really have to be in front of that change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
People move here for a lot of different reasons. Been in the community not as long as you, but about 50, 40 years.
Yeah.
And it has changed a fair amount over that period of time. What do you think draws people here? And what do you think keeps people here? And what do you think we can do to help all those new people develop a community sense that moves us all forward?
Yeah. Well, I think the distances are just decreasing so much, right? For so many years, Puget Sound was over on the coast, as people still call it, right? But as the freeway expanded over Snoqualmie Pass, as new infrastructure developed with fiber broadband, people can live here and work there, or maybe go over there a couple days a week because the road isn't, well, the pass seems to be closed more than when I was a kid. But regardless, there is still more capacity. People are drawn to this lifestyle. People are drawn to a place that has beautiful landscapes. It has a university. But it also has a rural lifestyle, a relaxed lifestyle that honors its roots by still, growing crops like hay and forage and cattle. These are elements of our community that I think are highly idealized in America. And we are lucky to have all of this here. And I think people are concerned, and sometimes rightfully so, that those who look at this longingly and want to be a part of this come over here and then say, well, it was a whole lot more structured over there in my urban environment than it is here. And there's a learning curve that comes with living in a place like this, right? Which is why we have things like a right to farm ordinance, where farming in the rural area takes precedence. If you have a complaint about how the operation goes, well, like it or not, that is our lifestyle here. That is a core part of what makes Kittitas County. So we have to do a little bit of learning, right? How to get these folks understanding what their interaction with the lifestyle looks like and how to be a part of that. But that doesn't mean we say you're wrong. We say, okay, well, we get that, but there are so many other places that they can pour those energies into to make this community better. We've nonprofits. We have so many nonprofits here, and I'm always pleased to see how much support, because I do go to a lot of them. But how much support is out there for all of these nonprofit different initiatives that are trying to make our community better. And I think it's important for people to know that we want their input, their feedback. And I think that's a huge part of local government too. We don't do this job without local feedback, without folks telling us what their comments and thoughts are in a constructive fashion.
Yeah.
But we have a very hard time getting people involved in boards and committees to help advise us on these things. And that's always a challenge, right? And yet people still think, well, I can't talk possibly because I'm not a quote local. Well, I think there's always a room for, no matter who you are, whether you've been here for a day or here for a decade or a century, to get your voice in. But it really matters how that voice is contributed into the conversation, whether it's bringing solutions or chucking rocks. And we want to have that. Went kind of round and round on that, Phil, but there's so much to that, right? People are coming here. People want to be a part of this. We should be welcoming them in a way that the managed growth that says we've accommodated for you coming here because we saw this coming. You're not going to stop them. As much as some people want us to put a gate at the pass, it can't happen. So let's figure out a way to make this work that brings all these perspectives together to make the best community possible.
I'm really curious to know more, from my own curiosity, a little bit more about your history lesson, or the history of your family, rather. Give us a history lesson about your family. You mentioned a number of times that your family's been here for a long while, and I'm curious if you can. I mean, obviously you can't really speak for the generations past, but you could at least give us an understanding of what maybe life was like for those past generations of your family, and how your family has evolved through their time here in Kittitas County?
It's actually, that's an interesting evolution. My great grandfather came here in 1860.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, David Schnebley. He came as a newspaperman. Came from Missouri via Walla Walla. Registered the first cattle brand in the state, the Barballoon brand. Still, actually no, the Territory, the first territory.
Right?
Yeah, the territorial brand on a piece of leather at Walla Walla, and it's still in use to this day at the Barballoon Ranch north of Kittitas, there in the Fairview area.
Wow.
And then. Generations after that, there's been a lot of public service in my family. Judge John Davidson, my great grandfather, built the Davidson building.
Yeah,
he was a Superior Court judge. My great grandfather, F.A. Kern, was a city attorney and prosecutor. Also, a lot of the driving force behind the KRD canal system. He was going back to Washington doing the funding work. My grandfather was a port commissioner here. All of them, and this is what I look at. Every single one of them was looking forward, was looking to the future to say, how do I make this community better by bringing industry here with cattle, by building, rebuilding the downtown.
Yeah,
really cool.
This is and you can't. None of them stayed in the present, which is what I've always appreciated about my past. And this is a real frustration, and I'm going to be blunt on here, with folks here that say somebody wants to change something. Stop, do nothing. And I seem to hear a lot more of that. And my comment to that is, when are we going to start looking forward from our perspective, how we will leave it for the next generation, instead of continuing to stand on the accomplishments, that stand on the shoulders of those who came before us and their accomplishments. Like it or not, life is in flux, right? And this community is in flux. And any community that is not in flux, in my mind, is frankly stagnant. It's going to be falling behind. The term "without growth, you're dying" in business. I think it applies to cities and counties like ours as well. I loved growing up here. I think it was a great place to be. My dad from West Seattle made the decision long ago to not pursue his dreams. He wanted to live here and give my family, his family, me and my sister, this lifestyle growing up. And I appreciate that. But that doesn't mean that we're going to take a snapshot of 1973 and try to transplant it into 51 years later, 52 years later. This is a completely different time. And we've got to, as a community, start to embrace that. And I think some are, and some are more challenged by that. How do we bring those that are concerned about their past into this conversation as well, without just saying change nothing? That's really the predicament that I have.
Yeah.
But one of the advantages that I do have is I'm not a newcomer, and I can say, I get it, I love it, but we've got to all come forward together.
Well, how do we bring people together? There's a lot of different groups. There's a lot of different organizations of different strata of education and economics. And one of my observations is that they don't all talk to each other. There's very little talking to each other. So how do we have a community conversation that really brings in these disparate groups to have a real conversation about what next?
Well, I think there's a process right now underway, just starting, for our 2026 periodic update under the growth management plan for county land use. It's a vision for the next 20 years about how our county is going to look, and it absolutely relies on public participation. It's a key component of it. But it's one of those things that flies kind of under the radar, right along with everything else. There's this project, make a comment. There's this transaction, there's all these government, solicitation for comments. And I think it's important from the county perspective, and we are going to work on doing this better, of I think explaining how important that part is, land use. But that's not the only thing, right? We have economics. Economic growth goes hand in hand with this land use component. That has already starting to take shape in terms of a new partnership that between governments, economic development agencies, the university as our prime workforce source, an economic driver as well, and starting to build a larger community conversation. But we've had this conversation in the past, the three of us. Where's that one place where people get information, right? And it used to be so easy to just publish it in the paper, and folks are talking about it in their different, restaurants and social clubs, which we don't have anymore, fraternal organizations, bowling leagues. We are getting a bowling alley. That's good.
Hallelujah.
Yes.
We were just talking about that yesterday.
Yesterday.
But how do we with all this different information out there, make it easier to access. As a county, we're not doing well at that, and I will say we do need to pump out more information like this to develop that communications perspective and coordinate with other governments.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that we're going to start to necessarily try to speak for all. We shouldn't. Different governments represent different people,
Right.
but we've got to coordinate better and get this information out, or at least people can get their eyes on it. But in terms of prioritizing it, to say, hey, look, this land use thing is a big deal. That's a challenge, and I've got to bring it do a better job as well. I think of bringing in our local journalism. They are a key part of getting the message out. It becomes once it's on paper, I think it's a little bit of a different flavor than it is on the screen, and I think some folks might complain about the content of what's in there. Regardless, support them. They are a very necessary part of our community fabric, and we as residents need to support our local journalists because they're the ones really going out and digging up those stories.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. When does this land use conversation start?
Within the next couple months, the solicitations are going to start going out. This examines the comprehensive land use plan, what goes where, commercial agriculture, our lands of what were called long-term significance, timberland. How do we protect those areas which are recognized as what makes the fabric of our county so unique and so I guess disposable if you're not watching it. But also, how do we account for the growth? How do we change the growth areas of our cities and funnel growth as the Growth Management Act says? The idea is you funnel large growth into the urban areas as much as possible, which is a challenge here because so many people want to come here and live the rural lifestyle. Yeah. So this is the balance that we have to go through with our residents as we chart the next path forward.
It sounds like it's going to be a good process. Yeah.
It's
maybe we can get involved.
Yeah, well, we need a lot of involvement.
Yeah,
this is a very important part, and this is where word of mouth is so important too, right? Because we're all part of a Rotary Club, and we'll talk to our Rotary Club about this stuff with announcements. But how does that club and those members need to? We as members of groups also need to spread these messages out in the community. It doesn't just stop at our club. We have conversations with others, and I think as civic-minded folks who are part of these groups, we try to do that. But maybe that's a message we should all be bringing within our clubs: is you as a person within this group have a bit of a responsibility to make sure this message continues to go out. And your message here of just trying to foster this communication is an important part of any civic group.
You talked about some challenges: growth management, population, resources, vision. Are there any others that you want to mention?
Well, I actually had this piece of information: housing affordability.
Yeah.
If you can't afford to live here, and you are competing with folks, if you live here, and you are competing with folks who are bringing salaries from elsewhere, who can afford the cost of housing here, and you who do not have a salary elsewhere but live here and are a contributor in this community, don't have the same spending power, then we have an inherently inequitable market. We as a community, as a county, have got to expand economic opportunity by not only growing the businesses that are here, supporting those businesses, but also recruiting new businesses that can pay better wages. We are in a completely different consumer price index. Actually, we were for many years, and now we are starting to get lumped more and more with the west side of the mountains because of the amount of income that's flowing over the hill. Prices grew up in the grocery stores, right? We are chasing, I think, a very inequitable position, or I should say, we are chasing the results of all this money going over the hills or coming over the hills, and it is forming a very inequitable position. Our housing affordability is, I think I talked with you about this in a previous conversation. We were looking at some data from the Chamber of Commerce. Didn't know what really said. 64.3. What does that mean? And so we looked it up, and it's a combination of interest rates, of housing affordability, of median price. I should say housing inventory, affordable price, and a good number is 100. If you're in excess of 100, that's even better. That's even more affordable. We are significantly below, so we are well behind the ability for a local family, a couple parents working, middle class jobs, trying to put kids through school. We don't want to be a city and county of renters. We have to not only expand single family housing, but we also do need to expand rental housing too, because our rental margins are very low as well. So even for a family that's renting, that's essentially a mortgage payment. So that's a big challenge that I'm facing. And if we are going to develop an economy, people need to have a place to live. If folks, if companies are going to come here, and if there's it's chicken and the egg, which comes first? Does the housing come first, or does the company's arrival come first? We've got to prepare for both.
I think that same chicken and the egg conversation goes towards a lot of different things. I think about infrastructure. I think about electricity. I think about
water
services. Yeah. As you mentioned previously, water, power, sewer.
It's a barrier for advancing our economy, because especially power. I think we're finding that the county's done a wonderful job, again, because of a crisis, and sometimes this is how we have to make these steps. But when the Upper County water moratorium came in the late 2000s and said no more construction because of all these straws with the wells, the exempt wells going in the ground, and it forced the county to be innovative. Say, okay, we will acquire water rights, we will build a water bank, which means that we've offset this water use, and now we are leading the state. The next step, I think, that is really hindering us is power generation here. Our utilities are dependent on the Bonneville Power Administration rates, right? The power generated elsewhere. Meanwhile, just across the river, they generate all their own power. They are in a much more advantageous position. We've got to figure out how we can do that here without the easy, power of a dam. And I think now with technology moving forward, there's a lot of opportunity, perhaps in small scale nuclear. There's been some discussions about that. The other one is with our public lands, of which our county is 75%. I think people need to hear this too. 75% publicly owned. Only this little strip right down the middle along I-90 is actually privately owned. There's a lot of trees and forests up there that need to be managed.
And I like that, how you drew that map for me in my brain. It's along I-90 that's privately owned, and everything else is.
That's it. Once you reach a certain elevation, it is.
I like how you said that.
Yeah, which also puts us from a county perspective in a bit of a pickle, right? Because we have to rely on tax income or tax revenue in order to pay for the services. 75% of the land within our county, though, is subject to what's known as payment in lieu of taxes, which is a much lower rate than what our private homeowners pay, and businesses, which is why we need to focus our revenue generation on businesses coming in, which require less services, which generate more money, generate the jobs, generate the income,
generate the taxes.
But you need the infrastructure to bring them here, right?
Chicken and the egg again.
Chicken and the egg,
I love this conversation. I'm curious, we all three of us are inspired human beings. I've noticed that about three of us is that we're always looking to find a way to help other humans thrive and such. And I'm curious, what is it that what inspires you most about our little community, our county, our little towns?
It's giving us this, continuing what is so loved here. It's making sure that those who follow us can appreciate it the same way we do. But it's also building, I think, a spirit of equity and opportunity for all. And I know that equity word's overused, and we talk about this, right? We're maybe a little bit different political spheres. But
I think let's take a pause so they can understand. Bill and I are moderate at best, probably a little bit left of center, and Cory is moderate, maybe a little bit right of center. So we are coming at it from slightly different viewpoints, right?
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate that we can have this conversation in a progressive type of a way, And you're right, equity is a absolutely a word that is triggering for a lot of people.
It is.
Both for both sides of the aisle, right? I mean, it's triggering for the left side because we're there's fear, and there's I think you might be able to speak to it better than I from your perspective, but
a reallocation of resources, I think, to help somebody who, and that's where I'm coming from here. I am not saying I want to take from you to give to you, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily
You
the
could.
best. Good, right? But that's not the best use of government. It's to use the resources available for all, from all to build the opportunities for all.
Okay.
And that in my mind means things like the infrastructure and such. But I want to make sure that everybody's treated fairly by the government too, because I am dealing with certain what inspires me in my job is helping those folks that really sometimes have nowhere else to turn. And they are struggling trying to understand all these intricate relationships between agencies, between who has jurisdiction or what, this, that, and the other. And at the end of the day, sometimes the county is the overarching thing.
Yeah.
And we have to take these issues on and try to solve them, understanding the limitations that we have as a county. We can't be all things to all people, but occasionally we can help broker a deal that gets us to a better place. And there's one going on right now. I don't want to go into it because it's still in process, and I need to respect the other agencies involved. But it's far-reaching. It has some real implications, and without, I think, the county's involvement in one way or another, it's going to be very difficult. But we have to be innovative in how county services can perhaps be flexed in order to meet these broad-ranging challenges that everybody has a stake in, not only the outcome, but maybe also the cause. Even the county has a little bit of the stake in how this cause, but that means we all need to be working together. Yeah. And I came in my previous industry, I was in business development, and even my wife says, there's nothing you love more than making a deal. And in this case, this is what really drives me is how do we bring all the resources, all the talents, put them on the table and say, let's build the best machine with all that we have available here amongst all of us.
You talked about inspiration and challenges. So what, from your point of view, what kind of things do you look for that lets you know we're moving in the right direction? What are measures of success, or what are measures of failure?
Yeah.
What things do you look for that allow you to say as a commissioner, yeah, we're moving in the right direction, or no, we got some trouble here, we got to make some changes?
Well, I can tell you what a mark of failure that I've learned, and that's pound sand, because I get a lot of people that say, tell them to pound sand, just tell Olympia or tell Washington or tell this guy, just pound sand. And
really?
And when I first came in, I was like, pound sand. And I've learned the hard way that's the nuclear option. That when you've reached that point, you've really failed. And I've had to learn that the hard way through a few different things. The old, if you recall, snowplows during COVID that we went through that turned into national news, right? Which ultimately cost us a lot of relationship credit with the Department of Transportation. I think we lost far more than we actually got out of that. So you learn how to manage these relationships. But a mark of success is when you do bring a deal together with other agencies, and you can see that in the Yakima Basin Integrated Plan. We had irrigators and Indians for decades suing one another, and now they're working together to support each other's projects. Right, the Cleellum Pool Raise, or the Cleellum Fish Facility, more than that, $150 million, first of its kind in the nation fish facility. That would not have happened without irrigators and the Yakima Nation coming together, along with a whole lot of other agencies, to say this is the right thing, and the county's succeeding out of that as well. When we have these multi-party agreements with agencies that people were saying like how'd you get involved with the county? That to me, that's a huge message. Yeah. Very, very good.
Parting shot. We have just a minute or two left.
Yeah.
What's a message that you'd like to have our listeners or viewers hear before we sign off?
Invest. And what I mean by that is what we put in today will pay huge dividends tomorrow, right? You look at things like KRD, the canal system, which at the time was a heck of an undertaking. But look what we have now. We have
Yeah.
world famous Timothy hay. Actually, our economy has gone through some different iterations of crops over the years, and now I think it's going through its next phase,
I think
which
so.
is very high dollar orchards growing.
Yep.
The cosmic crisp apples and such on the South Slope.
Mhm.
Invest your time in your community. Invest your time in educating yourself about these different issues, and also I'm going to say this: invest your money in the issues that and causes, not only from a nonprofit standpoint, but I've had to have my own understanding from a governmental point of view what investing my money in means. There was a time when I'd fill out a ballot and I'd say no, 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 challenger, 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 done. Just
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
an agent provocateur.
Back to that pounding sand
Yeah,
idea.
exactly.
Yeah.
And once you realize, well, that's really A, useless, and B, I'm not participating in the process without not only educating myself on the people making the decisions, but also understanding what the money goes for. Folks who are watching this will probably go, oh, when I say this, but I go back to a port district. A port district
Oh my goodness.
was a
Yes.
success here, and it was a
Yes.
success.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it is an investment, and I cannot think of a single investment from a government perspective besides schools. Right, you're investing in the next. And we can have our different. We can get way off track on schools right now and efficacy, but I think from an industrial investment point of view, a port district would do magnificent things for this county.
Magnificent.
In
Yeah.
terms of its
I
ability
agree.
That's
to
a big
compete.
word.
Yeah.
It's a great word, and I think
Yeah.
I think that's a appropriate and the right word to use. Magnificent. Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate
really
you guys
Yeah.
giving me the opportunity. And
Yeah. Great conversation.
Love it. A lot of
Really-
information.
And really like your leadership.
Well, thank you for doing this too. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got to start getting information like this out there and messages that folks can sit down and have a conversation and not be branded,
Right.
just by walking in the door about
Yeah.
what, how they lean.
Yeah.
All
Lovely.
right, buddy.
All right. Thank you.
Until we meet
Thank you.
again.
Cool beans.